Hi. Before we kick off with episode 2 here, I just want to talk about a couple of quick things. The first one is adventure points and experience points. In Strider mode, you actually can generate these as you go, but I don't really want to spend time every session looking at the checklist and going through them. Instead, I want to go through it at the end of an adventuring phase, since you can't actually spend those points that you've accumulated until the fellowship phase anyway. I will be then bearing in mind how many sessions I'd played getting up to that point, if that makes any difference. But I just wanted to mention it in case people wondering why I haven't done it yet after my first session, or after this second session possibly as well. That's not to say that's how it should be done, that's just how I'm planning to implement it. The second thing I wanted to quickly mention is a Foundry-specific thing. I had planned on creating journals in Foundry to record my journey. That would be a bit of a manual step, and was trying to think about how to implement that when the creator of the official system actually released an implementation of journal logs into Foundry. So it works really well. I like how it's been implemented, and I've already brought my current journey up to speed in this new journal log. So you'll see that flashing up on screen. I just really wanted to mention it in case you were wondering what this new fancy looking journal log was. It's not an extra module, it's part of the core, the One Ring 2nd edition system. And I guess the last thing to quickly just mention was thanks everyone for the comments on the last video suggesting who my benevolent being might be in that last journal event. There were some really good suggestions, and 2 of them really jumped out at me, and we'll kind of cover that in a second. But I just wanted to say thanks everyone for the suggestions. That was really helpful. It really helped me to think in ways that I might not have necessarily thought. A lot of them were along the same lines that I was already thinking, but there were some quite unique ones, and some ones that made me dig a bit deeper into Tolkien lore to try and see how I would implement that. In fact, that's what I'm going to be going with. So, yeah. Oh, and one other thing to mention as well. Between sessions, now this has been about 3-4 weeks between when I recorded my first session. And because of that, there's quite a lot of time passing in real life. It's inevitable that I'm going to be thinking about the plot and what's been developing and how I'm going to be taking that and doing a little bit of, wiki searching in the downtime and that sort of thing, when I've got some spare time before I'm actually sitting down to do the second session. And that's a natural thing that comes with any solo game. If you're playing a solo game yourself, regardless of whether you're doing it online or not, you're gonna be thinking about your last session that you ran, thinking about where you can take it for your next session, and that's all a natural part of things. You can include those thoughts into your solo play when you come back to the table and you sit down to do your next session. That's just a natural. If you think of it as a game master or a lore master, you're doing those same sorts of things in between sessions anyway. You're having a shower, you're driving to work, whatever. You're going to be kind of noodling over all the stuff that's happened and thinking about, what's an interesting little development that could happen there. And as a result, it just makes for a richer narrative, I think, and I've been doing that as well. So there's some developments like the messenger that got kidnapped. I've been thinking about how that fits and why would bandits kidnap a messenger. I was trying to figure out that little thing I grabbed onto, which was driven by the telling table, by the oracles there, how that could fit in with, how I can make sense of that within the world structure, the rules of the setting, that sort of thing. And I've come up with some ideas, so we'll be going in there. So without any further ado, let's jump back in. Now, we left it with my character Finnulf in the company of Borin, my dwarf companion. And we are at Sarn Ford. We've just arrived at Sarn Ford. This is the direction that we knew the bandits had been heading. And here we are. We arrived having cut across country to kind of cut off the little nick in the road to try and get there a bit quicker. One thing I didn't actually mention is the travel times. And in fact, the travel times are reduced if you have a horse and you're traveling along roads, which is definitely the case here. So let's have a quick look at the map on Foundry, and let's talk about that a little bit. So I started off here in Bree, or we started off here in Bree. We failed our first journey roll, which means we could only travel 1 and 2 hexes here. That is 2 hexes. Normally it requires 2 days, but if you have a horse and you're traveling on a road, it's halved. So that's 1 day there. Then we rolled again and we failed the second time. So we only moved another 2 hexes. That's 1 and 2. And because, again, we're on a road, that's 1 extra day of travel. So that's 2 days of travel. Then we rolled and we got a success, and we cut across country to get to Sarn Ford. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm counting these 2 days here of being on a road as only being 1 day, and then we have 1 day of cutting across country. So 4 days in total to get from Bree to Sarn Ford. There are ways to do forced marches as well, which reduces the travel time but increases your fatigue. I'm not going to be doing that here, I don't think. We're making good time. I'm happy with it taking 4 days. There's an argument that we're trying to save a messenger who's been kidnapped, so maybe we are pushing ourselves hard. And in fact, that might actually make more sense. So I think let's have a quick look at the forced march rules. So to do that, I'm going to open up the PDF actually. And here we have it. So you can see here there's a section on forced march. And basically it's just telling you what the forced march means. It means we're pushing ourselves a bit faster than we normally would go. If the company undertakes a forced march, count 1 day for each 2 hexes in the journey path instead of 1. But each player hero accumulates 1 additional point of fatigue for each day of forced march. Now that's going to be kind of hard to incorporate alongside the reduced time for traveling along roads. So let's go look at the map again and figure out what that means. So that means we can basically, it kind of means you're having the time for each day that you're doing this, right? So instead of it taking 2 days to go down this road, we were doing a forced march. We were pushing our horses as hard as we could. That took 1 day for 1 fatigue. Then we're cutting across country, and this would have been 2 days normally. So we can say in this 2 days that it normally took to come across here, we could say in theory that's only 1 day. So we could basically just have the normal time and say for 2 fatigue we could cover this entire journey in 2 days instead of 4. And I think I'm happy with that. There's no difficult terrain on this map, really. We're just we're basically galloping down a road at breakneck speed. We would basically, after the first day, be camping here just south of the Barrow Downs, which is a bit risky. And then as soon as day breaks, we're galloping hard across country to get to this road and then getting to Sarn Ford. So we could say that at the end of day 2, so it's getting to nighttime, we've arrived at Sarn Ford, it's night, we've pushed ourselves, we're going to come over here on the map down to the fatigue area. We've got 1 travel fatigue left in the bank, we're going to use that up, and we're going to add 1 fatigue in total to our current journey. So I now have, if I bring up my character sheet, I now have 1 fatigue, technically. Where is fatigue? It's under encumbrance, isn't it? Or under load. Here we go. So I'm adding 1 fatigue to the mix here. So my load is now goes up to 16, which is going to come into play with endurance. And if we get into a fight, that's going to make me weary faster than it might necessarily happen. Weary being a condition, a state of being, so to speak. Okay, so we've arrived here at Sarn Ford. One thing I do have is I have a scene ready for Sarn Ford, so I'm going to open that up. But yes, here we are arriving. It's nighttime actually at Sarn Ford. We get to the ford, and I guess we're going to make camp. And this is where that event happened, the joyous event, which was a benevolent being. And what actually happens is around dusk, as we're setting up camp near the river, perhaps I'm fishing for some food, right? So we can have some fresh fish to eat. Dawn and dusk being good times to catch fish. And as I'm fishing, I see down the river away a woman. And she's wandering along. She's on the other side of the shore, on the other opposite riverbank. She's walking along the shore, and I can hear this faint song that she's singing. And at first, I think it must be an elf, and I stop entranced as I'm watching her. At some point, she gets a bit closer, and she looks at me. And when we make eye contact, I feel this this sense of hope in my breast, and she smiles at me and then fades away, just disappears. And what I've just witnessed is the way I think of this is that I've seen a fae. It's not it must not be an elf, because elves don't just vanish. They're actual people. I've come across elves in Mirkwood in the past, and although they are a very enchanting people, they don't just vanish. This must be a fae. This must be one of the fae that haunts riverbanks, as we have rumors of these around the running river back home. And having witnessed a fae makes me think, it alleviates my spirit somewhat, and that's why I get a point of hope back, which is what the result of this event was. Okay, so here we are at Sarn Ford. What we don't find is and I'm not asking, this is something I'm just going with a narrative that I've been thinking about over time. We don't actually find bandits here. We don't find a bandit camp. Maybe we find the results of a hasty camp that's been set up somewhere nearby. In fact, let's ask the telling table. Do we find the remnants of a camp here on either side while we're setting up our own camp? And we'll go 50-50 odds here. Do we find them? Yes. Okay. So we find the remnants of a camp. That's fine. And I guess we'll use that same campsite to prepare our own camp, but this is going to be a campsite that's probably a few days old now. Bearing in mind we've traveled 2 days since getting the message, I think we can safely say that it took maybe a day, just over a day, for the messenger who rode like the wind to get to Bree to tell about these bandits kidnapping his fellow. Probably did that in about a day from that crossroad. So really, we're only a few days behind these bandits, assuming that this is where this campsite is. And maybe looking at the camp, I think just to make it simpler, we're going to say that this is the campsite for the bandits. So we're on the right trail. And I think the next thing to do is to figure out where we're going from here. And to do that, I think the best thing to do is to make a skill check to find out if we can detect where, if we can find any tracks. We know these bandits had horses, so we're looking for some fresh, horse tracks somewhere along the path, probably on the other side of the ford. And we'll do this the next morning. And to make this skill, to make the skill test, we're going to use the skill hunting, which is used for tracking as well as actually hunting things. So we come back over to Foundry, we open my character sheet, and let's make a hunting test. Now, we're on a journey here, technically, so I can actually spend a point of hope, and it will be automatically inspired because of my Strider distinctive feature. I still have to spend a point of hope for that to be the case. Looking at my hope, I have 12 hope. Out of a 14 maximum. And the way hope works with recovering hope is I can spend fellowship points to regain hope. So that would be, how many fellowship points? I've got 3 fellowship points. I can also use my fellowship points to activate Balin's Counsel, which is I can make a combat roll favored, which is quite powerful. And also during a fellowship phase, I can get back a number of hope equal to my heart score, which is 5. So I've got there's going to be quite a few ways I can get this hope back. So I am actually here. It's quite important that we find which direction they went. I'm going to spend a point of hope here to boost my hunting roll. So I click hunting there. I'm going to click here on hope. I'm going to click here on inspired again because it's from my Strider distinctive feature. And then I'm going to roll. So what I'm actually rolling here, with hunting I get 2 dice normally. I'm getting a bonus dice for hope. I'm going to get another bonus die for inspired. So I'm actually rolling 4 success dice here plus my feat die. And my target number, as you can see here, is 13. Let's roll. Look at that. Now that is not only a success, that's an extraordinary success. I got 2 6s here. So Yeah, this is going to take some thinking about how I'm going to, what that means exactly. So not only do we find the tracks of lots of horses heading off towards wherever they're heading, I think we can find out a little bit more information. And to find that out, we're going to dip into the Strider mode rules to see what they suggest. Okay, so this is Strider mode. We have this skill special success table. We can spend 1 success icon. Remember, I got 2 of these. To gain insight, go quietly, make haste, widen influence, build advantage, or cancel a failure. Building an advantage is definitely going to work. So I think building an advantage is going to... We're going to do a gain insight. We're going to do a build advantage. I think we can... Okay, so we see exactly where these tracks are headed, right? So if we go back to the big map here, we can see that the tracks are heading off along the road. And I think we're going to be saying that these tracks are so clear that this is what we can see as in the future as well. We're kind of using a single hunting roll to basically cover this entire tracking thing, right? So we're going to see where these tracks head. So the gain insight is we're going to be able to follow these tracks almost to where we need them to go with one of the successes, right? That's the gain insight, I think. It's kind of a loose interpretation of gain insight, but I'm happy to go with that. And the second thing, build advantage, I think because we know exactly where they're headed, we're going to give ourselves we're going to carry forward a success to improve the position or confidence for related task. In other words, I'm going to gain 1 dice on another roll, my next skill roll relating to this. So pretty straightforward. Now, if I look at my journey log at the moment, this is what it looks like. I've called it to Sarn Ford, but I'm going to keep this actual journey going beyond Sarn Ford. I'm not going to create a second journey event or a journey phase. We're going to adapt this one and say, okay, we're actually looking for this guy. He's not going to Sarn Ford. It's going to be going somewhere else. So we're going to change this from being called to Sarn Ford to Rescue Messenger, right? This is the kind of the journey, or we can say track messenger, maybe, right? I've currently got 1 fatigue. I'm just going to put that in there, just keep it up to date. And we've had these events. So we've had the 3 events in here. We're going to do the next event now. So where we're heading at this stage, we're going to be following the tracks, and we're following them the next day along here first. And we're going to be pushing ourselves. We're going to be doing a forced march, and we're going to be taking into consideration here, that we have horses and we are still going along a road. Okay. So we come up here to my macro, and we have here journey events. Now we're passing into the green area here. So we're in the Shire. We're in the outskirts of the Shire here. And because this is now a border zone, well, a border land, I think it's called, yeah. We get to roll, basically we get a favored roll on this event, which means I'm going to be rolling twice. I'm going to be, using the macro twice, I'm going to be taking the better result. So we're going to click this twice. Ill choices, I probably don't want that. And a mishap. A mishap is slightly better than ill choices. But regardless, I'm still going to be taking 2 fatigue points. But wandering enemy, oh god. Wandering enemies. Yeah, sure, fine. So this is our mishap. We're going with this mishap here. Wandering enemies. So as we come along here, well, along this first journey. In fact, I've taken a step too far. First, I'm meant to be rolling travel to see how far I can go. So let's make a travel roll first. I'm not going to be spending on this one any hope. Ooh. No, I think I am going to be spending hope because I'm filled with hope. We've found these tracks. I've had a glimpse of a fae. I think that this is the winds of favor are blowing in our direction. I am filled with hope, and I think, okay, this is the time we're really going to be pushing along here. And I actually I spent the hope again. I'm doing this. This is done automatically, so I don't actually change this manually. So I am going to spend hope here. I'm going to get the inspired because of the Strider mode still. And we're going to be rolling really well here because I really want to move further. We really want to be getting as close as we can to this guy that we're trying to find, this messenger. Okay, that's a success, but I didn't get any additional successes on it, so that's fine. Right, that means we've moved 3 spaces before we have this event. 3 hexes, right? So that's 1, 2, and 3. This is where as soon as the forest leaves, they're not going deeper into the Shire. They're skirting, southwest here, and we're following the tracks. Now, with the mishap, remember we get an additional success for this previous roll here, this hunting roll. I'm going to be using it here for this awareness roll. So I'm going to see. Now, basically, the way we're going to say this is as we skirt away, we're not quite to the foothills yet. There's a stretch of kind of like plains of, not meadows, but it's just these plains as the foothills kind of start gradually forming in the distance. And I think from here, we can also see far in the distance, we can see a broken tower, this one that people have talked about being able to see from near Sarn Ford. And that's where the tracks seem to be leading once they come off the road. We can kind of see where the tracks are heading, and they seem to be heading towards the foothills, and we can see this tower up ahead. And we're reminded of this rumor that we had previously of a tower. Okay, and we also spot some enemies. So I'm going to be making this roll here for awareness. I don't get to spend. I'm not spending hope on this, but we do get an additional bonus die from the previous roll. So let's give that a roll here. Wow. Okay, again, 2 successes. Okay, so there are wandering bandits around this area. We spot maybe 2 bandits in the distance, but there's a way that maybe there's a fold in the ground somewhere that we can kind of like take our horses into, that we can kind of maybe skirt around them without them spotting us. We've spotted them in enough time. So I'm going to spend those 2 points again, going back to the Strider mode rules to see what we can spend the success on. And I think we want to go quietly, so we're going to be not attracting their attention, and we're going to be building advantage still. So we're going to build advantage for the next roll. This is nice. We're building this chain of advantage. Hopefully it's going to stand us in some good stead. And we're going to do that now for this next travel roll, because now that we've done this next event, and in fact, what I need to do is I need to add to my journal log here. Right, I need to add an event. Okay. We're going to pop that away. Oh, and one other thing as well, we've gained 2 fatigue from this event as well. So this goes up to 3 now. Okay. So we're up to 3 fatigue. I need to add that to my character as well. Okay, and let's make another roll then. So travel, I'm using the extra bonus dice from that last extraordinary success. And let's see whether we get a success here. Okay, it is going to be enough to be a success, but we don't get any extra bonuses from that or anything. So we can move another 3 hexes. And we're moving along the river here, and they're coming in here. We're now entering the Darklands, and that means for the journey event, we're going to be rolling twice and taking the worst result. So even though 2 of our 3 hexes were in the Wildlands, which technically, don't worry, you just take 1 roll. I like the fact that we're ending in this more dangerous place, and I actually prefer there to sometimes be some of these more for it to be a bit more dangerous, because that's when some really interesting things happen. So we're going to be rolling twice again on the journey events table and see what we get. We'll take the worst result here. Terrible misfortune. Perfect. So even though we had a shortcut, we're getting rid of that one. We've got a terrible misfortune, which is a hidden hazard. We're taking 3 fatigue, so we'll do that straight off. We're up to 6 fatigue now, so that's not brilliant. So let's open my character sheet. Let's make that awareness roll. I'm not going to spend any hope on this. We're going to let the dice roll. Let the dice roll where they may. I already get to roll 2 feat dice for this because I've got awareness as a favored skill. But I failed. Failure means the target is wounded. So we've stumbled into danger. and we take a wound. Now let's head. We're gonna do something else. I've put in some location tables from Ironsworn, and this is just to add a bit more flavor to locations, just to give them a bit more. Yeah, a bit more detail. So I'm going to roll this. It's going to generate 4 different words. It's like an oracle. It's like a telling table kind of, but specific to locations. And I'm going to ignore the ones that I'm not really after here. We know that we're in some foothills, so I don't need the type. The descriptors, it's wild. We're in wild country. That should be clear. And there's also some oracles here for ruins from the Delve, Ironsworn Delve. So that's not going to come into... Well, maybe we're actually just getting to some ruins here, some ruins of an ancient city. And we can say that in the next hex along is where this tower is. So we're on the outskirts here, and something happens. The ground gives way, maybe beneath. We've had to get off of our horses, and yeah, something happens here. I fall into maybe it's not a trap necessarily, but just treacherous ground. I fall and I injure myself. I'm going to give myself a wound, the wounded status. It's before I roll how many days, I actually have to roll a feat die to see how severe the wound is. I think I might actually have something here in my GM screen to show this under combat. Nope, under conditions maybe? Here it is here, wound severity. So let's have a quick look at this. When you're wounded, you roll a feat die to roll on the wounded severity table below. Okay, so let's roll a feat die, just on its own. I actually have a macro here to do this. A single feat die. It's the Eye of Sauron. That is terrible. That's a terrible result for me. That means I have... God. I've suffered a grievous injury. I'm knocked unconscious with 0 endurance, and I'm now dying as if I've been wounded twice. Okay. Now, that couldn't really have gone any worse. So, I take a massive tumble. We're getting into these foothills. Maybe we're skirting up to the top of the first hill. And I somehow miss my footing. It's dark. We're maybe trying to look around for camp. I'm distracted by something. Maybe I hear a noise or something. And I take a massive tumble down the side of this hill. And maybe I smack my head really hard against some masonry from a part of a ruin. And boom, there's blood coming out of my head. I'm out. Now, thankfully, I have a companion here. Otherwise, yeah, well, there's various things that could happen here if I didn't have a companion. But I have a companion, and we're going to be looking at how the companion can maybe help me. Before we do that, let's have a look at what needs to happen to my character, though. I'm going to be knocked unconscious, which we've said. I'm going to have 0 endurance, and I'm going to be now dying. Dying means that we must receive a healing roll within 1 hour, or we die. Success means we are now 1 endurance. But yeah, basically, yeah. Boren needs to save me here. If wounded, add 10 days minus first aid to recovery. And first aid's down here. So a successful healing roll reduces the severity of an injury by 1 day, plus 1 day for each success rolled. So I'm not 100% sure what this means, but I'm just going to kind of roll with it a little bit and say that Boren is going to try to attempt to heal me. And I'm not rolling for Boren. I don't have stats for Boren. All I have for Boren is some vague information. If we look here at his entry in Foundry, we can see here that he has the skills of awe and battle, the distinctive features of gentle and dark, and we know that he is a veteran. That's his kind of trade. Now, he's not a healer. I didn't hire somebody who's known for their healing skills. Maybe he's got a little bit of experience with sort of like, patching up battle injuries and stuff. But this is maybe something else. But he's still he's still an old dwarf, and I'm sure he's healed head injuries before, where people have been, cut by, had a head injury from battle or something. So I'm not going to say that he's an experienced healer, but he maybe has a way of being able to help here. I don't really want to roll healing here, so I think we're going to ask the telling table instead. And we're going to ask the telling table if he's able to heal me. And On a yes, we're gonna look at it as he was able to heal my injury on like a basic success. On an extraordinary success, on a yes, and if a Gandalf rune effectively is rolled, then I recover. We could say I can recover one additional endurance. On a no, he doesn't heal me, and we'll think about what happens there. I'm gonna treat this a bit narratively, and on an Eye of Sauron, if an Eye of Sauron is rolled again, then we're going to say that I am. Am I dead? Am I dead? I don't know. Something really bad happens. Well, we'll figure that out. I think we're going to have to be rolling on the lore table to figure out what that means if I roll another Eye of Sauron. So, let's roll the telling table. What are the chances that he's going to be able to heal me? I think we're going to go with 50-50 odds here, because he's probably seen plenty of head injuries in his time. He knows to stop the bleeding. Maybe how to patch me up, but I don't think I want to go any more than that. So it's not great odds, but it is what it is. So I'm going to roll it, and let's see what I got. Yes. Okay. He was able to heal me. Okay. So that means my endurance is at 1. Yeah. That means I am now definitely weary because my endurance is below. I'm wounded for a number of days. And to figure out what that means, I roll a... Okay, it's actually the result of the wound severity. The number that you roll there determines how many days it takes to recover. But I rolled an Eye of Sauron, so I take a full 10 days. It's going to take a full 10 days to recover from this. Now, this is not brilliant because time is of the essence. We're trying to track down this messenger who's been kidnapped. I've just taken a grievous injury. I'm really not in a good way here. And really, I need to heal up a bit before we can go any further. But we're out in the middle of nowhere. There's bandits roaming around, as we just saw. We're getting close to where we think these bandits are. And it's really not an ideal situation to be in whatsoever. So I'm going to actually end the session here. I'm thinking what might happen is I might swap focus and make Borin my PC, my solo PC, as he hides Finnulf somewhere nearby, tries to hide him as best as possible so that the bandits don't necessarily find him, while Borin goes to see what's happened to this messenger and continue the story here with Borin on his own. So episode 3 is going to be with me having Borin as my PC. So I'm gonna have to flesh Borin out as a full PC PH here, player hero, not player character, and see what happens. So yeah. Finnulf has not managed to have his glorious start to this, so we'll have to see what happens. And yeah, let me know what you think so far down in the comments, as always, and I'll catch you in... Actually, it's going to be 4 weeks when the next episode's going to be coming back, so in 4 weeks I'll catch you for episode 3. Cheers.